A week after the earthquake in Turkey, international aid is arriving, but hundreds of thousands of people are without basic supplies or places to live. And there have been more rescues, which seem more astonishing every day. Our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, has been visiting a British field hospital in Turkoglu, where regular health services have been overrun. He joins us now live from Gaziantep. Alex.
Yes, and that's part of a global effort, really, as this whole situation changes from the immediate search and rescue into long-term healthcare. We'll be coming to that in a moment, but first, our situation here tonight. A bunch of lads next to us from Kazakhstan search and rescue team there. They've just been having a delivery of delicious flatbread from local volunteers to keep them going as they continue to dig and remove rubble through the night. That, in this weird world here, it's becoming an almost typical scene here as nations gather around this situation from east to west. It is, you can see me stuttering, it's well below freezing here already. Let me update you though on what's happening statewide. Two prongs of the initial state response. First, the looting. 3 nights ago it was 48 people arrested, last night 57. Tonight 97 people are in custody, helping the police with their inquiries. Obviously will be charged with offences such as theft. The other thing which we've mentioned briefly tonight, the issue of allegations that so many of these tower blocks where so many people died were substandard in their construction. Well, the state now has a long list of at least 151 people that it wishes to contact. Of those, some 78 people are tonight in various police stations across Turkey talking to the police, and some 12 people, a dozen, have already been formally charged. That is pretty quick off the mark, you have to say, in terms of those formal charges just a week on from the disaster. So to long-term healthcare, what do you do when you arrive at a situation where you realise you're alive with all the relief that comes with that, but you need heart medication perhaps, epilepsy, diabetes, chronic conditions, or you're just plain ill. Your doctor may be dead or gone, the surgery, the clinic destroyed, even the local hospital obliterated. Well, that's where long-term international aid and care comes in. And as you say, we've been looking at the British part of that today. And all the while, those miracle escapes, defying all the odds, continue to happen right across the earthquake region here. Defying the odds doesn't really capture it. A small girl, believed to be 6, Mirai, eased from the rubble today after 7 days and 10 hours, buried alive in Adıyaman. In Antakya, another, this time a 13-year-old boy, somehow extracted alive after 7 days and 14 hours. Pictures also released from Hatay of the British search and rescue team. This was Saturday. They'd registered a human voice in the rubble, but it would take another 17 hours to extract her after 5 days. Turkoyu seems to nestle quietly enough in the lee of the Toros Mountains. All well from a distance. Till we reached the Turkoyu Hospital, built only 5 years ago, the main reception area.
Wow.
An abandoned ward, the maternity unit, X-ray equipment.
And this is why, in this part of Turkey, everybody's moving from emergency forward to mid and long-term healthcare planning. This one ward of many of the local hospital here. And until the quake struck, this place was handling around 800 patients a day. Now, a modern, purpose-built hospital is completely wrecked.
Out back, knitted sheets. Perhaps an emergency escape route during those terrifying moments 1 week ago. New CCTV footage of the initial earthquake released today. This, the city of Diyarbakir. Those tremors still continue. Overnight, a 4.8 aftershock opened new fissures in the car park at Turkoyu Hospital, where beds, precious beds, stand salvaged from the wreckage. Over the weekend, the Brits arrived here.
So there's another bit that's caught. You see it?
So as emergency morphs into long-term healthcare, a field hospital is being set up. Everything needed flown in from the UK and trucked to location.
We're expecting to look at helping out the ongoing medical services to help them with more the chronic conditions. So I'm primary healthcare, we've got an obstetrician, we've got a paediatrician, emergency doctor, and we've also got a surgical facility being set up by the military. So looking more at, their whole infrastructure's been destroyed and people still need their medicines.
This a UK first, a joint civilian-military operation, working closely with the already established Turkish field hospital here and serving a town whose entire health system has been shattered. And you do not have to go far from hospital to see the urgent need. Street after street pulverised. Hey, come and film the house, says Nevzat. The smashed house. He said his family escaped by jumping out of the windows. Others not so lucky. A neighbour died here, Nevzat tells us.
We've had 7 funerals. 3 brothers, grandchildren, nephews, all of them died under the rubble.
He takes us a few streets away to where his family now lives. No, exists. 2 tents, 30 people. Nobody here seems to trust being inside a building, if such a building is even there. But the mid and long-term implications for people living on streets like this are obvious for their health. The town park is now a water station and a food kitchen. So across the quake zone, Turkey and the global effort now move to meet long-term need for the hundreds of thousands caught up in all this. Demolition efforts underway here in Hatay after the country's worst earthquake since 1939. Turkey's president promises everyone will be rehoused from all this within a year. Turkey's president is also facing a difficult election. As big election promises go, that takes some beating.
Well, joining me now from the Turkish capital is Ünal Çevikhoz, a senior MP from Turkey's main opposition, the Republican People's Party. The election is due within 3 or 4 months. Do you believe it will happen?
Yes, I think by the constitution and according to the election law, we are expecting the elections to happen on the 18th of June, the latest. The government has tried to organize early elections, probably sometime in mid-May. But after the earthquake and after that disaster, I don't think that it will be possible for the 14th of May. But there is no other legitimate ground or legal possibility to postpone it further than the 18th of June. So I expect it to happen on the 18th of June. However, having said this, I think the government officials are trying to find some excuse for postponing the elections.
Right. Well, I mean, the president has spent the last week saying nobody could prepare for an earthquake on this scale. This was bigger than anything that has ever hit the region. Do you think that is a fair defense?
Well, the magnitude of the earthquake is very, very high, of course. And there were 2 successive earthquakes, one with 7.6 and the other one with 7.5 strength. And this is, of course, a big magnitude. But I think it is possible to prepare for an earthquake because we know that the region is on the fault line and it has always been mentioned as a possible earthquake zone. And I'm afraid we have to also take into consideration what we have lived in 1999 in Marmara, where there was a very big earthquake. And after that earthquake, we should have drawn, of course, necessary lessons. And according to the necessary lessons, I mean, we would, of course, have to apply the earthquake regulations. The earthquake regulations have changed a couple of years ago. And according to the new regulations, we had to fortify the buildings. And this, unfortunately, has not been made, apparently. And that's the reason why many of the buildings have been destroyed. Some of the buildings have been constructed only about 2 or 3 years ago, and they have been destroyed. That is simply because the earthquake regulations for fortifying the necessary the buildings, unfortunately, has not been applied.
There have been some very swift arrests and many arrest warrants issued for construction firms. Do you think there will be political accountability in the same way and as quickly?
It could be because it's not only the construction material which is wrongly used, or it's not only the earthquake regulations, but there are also some ideas or some claims that construction permissions were given to areas where the terrain is volatile and it is not solid. And if it is built on wetlands or former river basins, of course, that should have not been done, and it should have been avoided. So if there is some kind of a guilt or neglection which has been detected, then perhaps those who have been given the permission will also be accountable.
Do you think this could change the course of Turkish politics and possibly be a departure for the president?
I think it has already started to change because the people living in the area, in the earthquake area, is about 13.5 million. But I think the whole country and the whole population is affected because they all have their relatives, and some 150,000 people have already been relocated from the earthquake region to several other cities. That, of course, affects their relatives, and there is a very strong reaction to what has happened, and many people blame the government for not taking the necessary measures in time.
Mr. Chevikos, thank you very much indeed for your time.